So what you're watching here, if you clicked on this video, are a bunch of Planaria. They live in your aquarium. That's right, your freshwater aquarium. And this is not how fast they move. This is a Planaria slant leech trap. And these are under time lapsed. So what you're looking at here in these few minutes took place over 7 hours. And I want you to look at the gravel in this fish tank. If you clicked on this video, you probably have worries about what the little white worms are that you may have seen coasting along the interior surface of your glass on your fish tank. Or maybe they were cruising over the gravel at the bottom, and you might be concerned about what they are. Well, let me tell you, if you've got a fish tank, tropical fish tank, and you have kept fish for any amount of time and brought in plants and pieces of wood and snails and maybe some shrimp, there's a very good chance that you brought eggs of one of these flatworms with them. And they set up shop in your gravel. And I know it freaks people out to look at them, because after all, they're worms. They're in your fish tank. But you should know that just like pond water, your fish tank is alive. And if you've ever taken a sample of fish tank water from the substrate and put it on a glass slide and put it under a microscope, then you know that there's a lot of biology going on in there. And Planaria are no exception. Chances are they're in almost every fish tank, and I'm going to show you what they look like here close up. And I'm also going to show you the difference between a Planaria and a leech. And also I'm going to put it in perspective. Are they really dangerous in your tank? Could they get out? Could they climb over the top and scoot across your kitchen floor, your bedroom floor, or end up underneath your pillow while you sleep? I don't think they do. And I think we can just relax about it, but there are some very cool things to know about these flatworms, starting with the fact that there are hundreds of species. That's right, we're looking at the bottom of them right here, on the interior of a glass Planaria leech trap. And they have a very primitive digestive system. They have all kinds of things going on. They have a brain. You've got a digestive system. Look at the bottom of the one over here, top left. It just ate a bunch of baby shrimp right here. That's right. That's what drew them into the trap. And I'm going to show you later what kind of shrimp I put in here. But there's something else, since we can see the bottom of this one. About 2/3 of the way down, you see that long center tube sticking straight back. That's a pharynx. That's right. You might have wondered, how did they get those little shrimp inside their primitive digestive system? Well, they use that tube. They don't have a mouth the way you would think they might. Sure, they have the star-shaped head with the little pseudo eyes on there that make you think they're looking around. But they're scooting along in this very fluid way, sensing and smelling, because they've got a brain, of course, a sensory system, and a reproductive system. That's right, they reproduce. Do they need each other to do that? In other words, if you just had one make its way into your fish tank, is that all you have to worry about? No. Just like this big fat one scooting across right through the center there with his stomach full of those brine shrimp fry, they can be asexual. That's right, you can have one and it can reproduce itself. But these things really are amazing. I'm going to tell you some details about them. So, of course, there's a trap. That might give you some comfort, because you could think, yeah, I'm going to get those things out of my fish tank. How would I do it? Well, these glass traps are outstanding, because over all the testing I've done, let's cut the music. With all the testing that I've done, they don't get back out through those glass tubes. So it's a one-way trap. That's why this is better than a bottle with holes drilled in it. I took a plastic test tube and I drilled holes in that too. But the concern there is they get slender, they get in, and they get right back out. So in this video, we're going to be using this glass trap. So we'll go ahead and start up some of that cool music again while I tell you more about Planaria, because they are fascinating. There's a lot to them. other than the fact that we can see through them. Now keep in mind, they're translucent, and that's why they're looking kind of gray and clear here. They're lit from the front, they're lit from the top, so we can get a really good look. Because I don't want you to confuse them with anything else. They're not roundworms, they're flatworms. And as I said before, there's hundreds of them. But I want you to know something else about these worms. They're tiny miracles, and that's why scientists pay attention to them. And here's what happened to them when this trap was left in overnight. They died. The one scooting along the bottom there is on the outside of the glass tube. And if you notice too, look at the ones that are dead between the body of the test tube and the cap. They couldn't get through it. Now, I don't know why they died. I just know that at nighttime, because they prefer to move in the dark, they filled up this test tube and a whole bunch of them died. And you can see there are a few in there that are still alive, but look at the rest of them. So somehow they killed themselves. That's all I can think of. And the orange stuff through there, those are the fry from the brine shrimp. Now these are not all planaria in this cap here. Look at the top. See how that thing moves? Like a slinky. That's right. That's a clear leech. Look at the one going through the middle now. See how they go point to point while the planaria glide elegantly along? The leech goes like a slinky. Why are they leaving? Because they put bright lights on them and they don't like it. So that cap stays on, pretty good friction, and they can't pass through it even though they can stretch themselves out thread thin. As I mentioned before, scientists pay attention to these things because they're marvels. Do you know they're used for stem cell research? That's right. If you cut one of these up in multiple pieces, they reconstruct themselves. From each little piece would come another planaria worm. That's why they're amazing. The other thing is, they have rapid cell reproduction. In fact, in just a couple of weeks, they completely regenerate and regrow every cell in their body. That's right. So let's say you had them as pets. Let's say you fed them. They go after protein. You could keep them in perpetuity. They would continually reconstruct themselves to the point where 3 weeks down the road, the planaria that you're looking at right there is a brand new creature. It looks exactly the way it used to, but all the cells are new. Now you tell me that's not fantastic. So this self-renewal capability is why they're so interesting to scientists. In fact, you could look that up. But they're cool. So looking at this trap, and there goes your leech again through the top there. Here are the planaria down in the front. So we're going to talk a little more about them. Should you flip out because they're in your aquarium? Because they're in the gravel? I say no. And that's because they're nature's composters. They get down there and they decompose the material that is inaccessible to your fish. So when you have gravel, as I do here in this tank, and this is a 54-gallon habitat, by the way, you need something in that gravel to break things down. There goes a leech across the top. I don't like them, and it doesn't bother me in the least that he's in that trap. But we need them. They're part of the system. In fact, if you look around, there are fish that eat these too. But let's look at the details of this trap. There's that friction cap. Works really well, and they don't pass between it. These are the little tubes inside. It looks like this one got a little hot, and they cracked it, but it's still functional. The fact that it's glass means that once you get these full of your planaria, you can drop it in a 10% bleach solution, or you can even heat it up to sanitize it. So you clean it up in between. Now sometimes these little tubes will fill up with dead planaria, and that's where you put it in a 10% bleach solution and you soak it for 24 hours. That's why you need multiples of these traps if you're trying to make a go of getting these things out of your substrate or getting them under control. And because it's glass, it'll wash clean. This is what I use for the bait. Ocean Nutrition instant baby brine shrimp. Fish love it too. But this is what I put in the trap, and it looked like they could smell that because it was kind of unsettling when I put this in the gravel, and it's much better to put it down in the gravel, not on top. I only put it up against the glass here so that we could see it better. And the tube should be facing down, although the Planaria don't seem to show a difference for that. They don't show a preference. They come right up through the tube. Look at that there. How cool is that? You might find yourself so fascinated by them that you sit at length with your cup of coffee, staring at them with a magnifying glass because they're tiny. You want to see how many go into the trap. Maybe you get so caught up in it that you make yourself a time-lapse sequence as I did in the beginning of this video. So what else can I tell you about them? Oh, look who's coming through there. I don't like him. I don't know if it's male or female, but that's a leech. What's he gonna eat? What's he got to eat? Well, apparently not much, because that's a tiny leech, and he's translucent, as you can see. Same thing with the Planaria that you're gonna see in this test tube. They're tiny, they're thin, and you know what's cool about them? They degrow. What the heck does that mean? Well, when there isn't a lot of food and substrate for them, rather than carry around a large body that requires more nutrition, they degrow, they get smaller. And because they're smaller, they live longer on less food. Now, when the food's abundant, when you throw a bunch of food in your fish tank and your fish don't clean it up, or it gets down into the rocks out of reach of your inhabitants of the tank, then you need these Planaria down there to clean it up. And when there's a lot of that down there, they get thicker, they get darker, they can even be brown. Same thing with your leeches. They go from transparent to dark to big. So they grow and they degrow. But there's nothing for them to eat. I'm not worried about them in my tank. There are fish that eat them, of course. You can look it up. There goes my little Amano shrimp, trying to get at those little brine shrimp he sees in there. Now, are these a danger to my Amano shrimp, to my invertebrates? They really aren't. Now, if I were a breeder, if I were raising shrimp, and there were going to be little shrimp fry, like those used for bait in this test tube, they'd be in jeopardy. It's conspicuous to all of us now that they get in there, and with their pharynx, they draw in those little shrimp complete, and then they scoot around on the glass with their translucent bodies carrying little chunks of shrimp in them. It's kind of amazing, really. So we're looking at something that is a stem cell marvel. Now, does that mean I'm not going to kill them? That I'm not going to collect them out of the tank? That I'm not going to put them in this trap and do away with them? No, of course I will. I don't do stem cell research. But tiny tissue remnants can result in an entirely new animal. So I want you to really think about that. So next time you're looking at the gravel in your fish tank and you see little tiny threads, little white worms just gliding over and leaving you wondering, did I really see movement? Because they're subtle. There isn't a dramatic pattern on them. So you can use them for fish food. I'm not breeding other fish, so I don't worry about them eating the eggs of fish or eating the fry of fish, which they apparently could, because they have to pull it in whole. They don't chew things apart. I don't know what those leeches do. I also have nerite snails, and I've seen them glide right over the top of the nerite snail. They don't bother them at all. I've also seen them scoot right past the Amano shrimp, and they don't seem to care either. It'd be cool if the Amano shrimp would eat them, but they don't. So if you find these worms, sure, they're unsightly. Sure, they freak you out. Look at this one coming through the tube right now. Right up over the top. And then there's that horrendous leech over there on the left reaching around with its little leechy ends. We don't like to look at them because we don't understand them, but I think the more you understand about them, the less they might bother you. And the next time you see one of these things, with its pure potency of neoblasts, a creature that regenerates itself completely in a matter of weeks and both grows and degrows, a pretty fantastic free-living organism in your own fish tank. Something stem cell scientists are fascinated by. Now, I highly recommend, if you want to get rid of them, put traps in your tank, just like this one. I also highly recommend you don't use chemicals to deal with animals that are in your tank that you just don't happen to like, unless for some reason they're detrimental. Even bottom feeders like a plecostomus would eat these little rascals. So if you want something else to help keep them under control, keep your substrate vacuumed out nice and clean, don't overfeed your fish, and make sure you have a few fish in there that would scarf them down. There goes the leech again. I even had to put a text on there for that one just to make sure you see it. Very distinctive. So for the rest of this video, I'm just going to let you stare at them and listen to the music and think about it. All the different things that are living in your fish tank, in your house, in your bedroom, right next to your bed. However, your amount of shrimp are more likely to clamber out and crawl across your face while you sleep with your mouth agape in the middle of the night than these are. Because these just can't make it out of the water. Now, there are soil species. These aren't those. So I hope you learned something today. I want to thank you for watching. And just spend some time and marvel and listen to the music. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.